The very first time was in Tanglewood. My band had just played Woodstock, so we were really big. We were big like U2 or somebody like that. And so Bill Graham said, who would you like to open up for you or to work with, you know? I said, Miles Davis. He goes, okay, I'll call him, you know. And Miles Davis and Bill Graham were supremely important in my life because Miles Davis taught me about music and Bill Graham taught me about business, you know. And it was funny to see them both together because they were always, it was an experience to see both of them together. Yeah, they both would sharpen their machetes with each other, you know. But it was at Tanglewood. He drove in on a yellow Lamborghini or Ferrari, one of those.
There's a story about that. No? He came late, or?
Yes. Oh, he came in late. Yes. No, with us he didn't. He came in late at the Fillmore because he didn't want to open up for Steve Miller. But for some reason he respected enough to. It was the Voices of East Harlem's Miles Davis and Tanglewood and Santana. I have this video. It's superb quality. Hopefully one of these days we'll see it. Miles sounds so strong because he was still boxing. And his notes, you know, it's like Jimi Hendrix. It's very dynamic, very powerful, you know, full of fire and passion. That's the first time that I met him, you know. Then he came to the rest of the concerts. We played at the Fillmore East 3 nights in a row. And he was there 3 nights in a row. And I remember telling him, Miles, Jack Johnson is incredible. He goes, ain't it though? I said, yeah, it is. You know, and that's the album that I believe scared Jimi Hendrix, because Miles told Jimi Hendrix, I'm going to put one of the baddest rock and roll bands in, you know, and so it was Billy Cobham and John McLaughlin and Herbie Hancock and like that, you know, Steve Grossman. Oh yes, I have nothing but respect and admiration for him. I mean, I always knew that my favorite word for Miles Davis is that Miles Davis is a supreme divine rascal. You know, I know that God loves rascals because he's the only one that could get away with what he got away with in New York or anywhere in the world. He could say and do and be. He was a rascal, you know, and he played by his own rules, not by anybody's rules. He was always very kind to me. I know he scratched a lot of people in interviews, and especially on his biography, on his book. He was always very kind to me, and I'll always treasure that. I know when I get to heaven, he'd be the first person I'm going to look up. Well, I have a lot of personal ones. The ones that I treasure the most are in '81 when he came back, and he found out that I was in the building in Avery Fisher Hall. And when he saw me, I came in and in front of all kinds of people, he came right at me this close, and he put his hands like this behind my neck, and he hung his feet off the ground, and he was hanging at me, just looking at me like this, and I was like, hi, Miles. And he did this again on his 60th birthday. Cicely Tyson invited my wife and I, with a lot of people were there. Quincy Jones and everybody was there. And Miles came in 2 hours late, and he did the same thing. You know, it was in a boat, and he did the same thing. He picked me out of everybody, and he came straight at me, and he put his face like this again, and he did the same thing. He went like that behind my neck, and he just hung. I mean, his feet off the ground, and I'm, hi, Miles, you know. And I treasure that because I don't know why he did that to this day. You know, there was Howard Johnson, Joe Sawano. I mean, everybody was there, you know, and I treasure that. My favorite funny story is the one that John Lee Hooker told me. Gianni Hooker called my house and he said, "Hi, Carlos," he says, "you know Miles?" I says, "Yes, I know Miles." He says, "I did an album with him, I recorded with him, but he wouldn't talk to nobody except me." He says, and the only thing he said to me was, he said, "John Lee, you're the funkiest man alive. You sound like they bury you up to your fucking neck in mud." And then you went, You know, and I said, "Well, John, that's a compliment, you know, from my," I guess so. He goes, you know, but I treasure everything. All the nights I spent listening to his music the first time I met him, and the times that he called me on the phone, you know, and to me, he's a supreme angel in this century. That his music is, I mean, who else played with Charlie Parker and Coltrane? You know, who else motivated Wayne and Tony and Herbie and people like that to be at their best? You know, I don't know any other motivator who can make you rise up and play like you didn't know you could play. You know, that's an incredible gift to make a diamond out of charcoal. You know. The same thing that we all learn, how to concise instead of playing a million notes.
Exactly.
You know, economy. You get precise and concise. You know, I think we all learned that from him. How, you know, just get to it, get to the heart of it, and move on. You know. Yes. Yeah. So he disguised it very well, but he was a shy person. But you wouldn't know it because he would make a lot of jokes. I also went to see him in a club in New York, and Richard Pryor opened up for him. And Miles was funnier than Richard Pryor, you know. I mean, his sense of humor, man. You know, you just die laughing, you know. And it comes out in his music, you know. I always felt that somebody who could play that beautiful could not be as nasty as he wanted us to believe that he was, or as cruel or as hard, you know. And I never knew that side. People say those things, but I never saw that, you know. He never brought it around me, you know. So I only know one side of the diamond, you know, one facet of the diamond, and I'll always treasure that side of the diamond. Essential, as important as Picasso or Stravinsky or Leonardo da Vinci. To me, it's always nourishment for the soul, like water. You know, you can have caviar and champagne and Coca-Cola and beer. Sooner or later, you're going to drink water. And Miles' music is food for the soul. You know, I also understand why he cried when Coltrane left, you know, because I can understand it, you know, being so sensitive that he was. People told me Miles cried when Coltrane said, "Gotta do my own thing." That's the only person, you know, that went another way from Miles. He came out of his school, but he graduated with supreme honors, you know, and I treasure both of them completely. I mean, in fact, I listen to Train and I'm listening to Miles. I listen to Miles, I listen to Train. They're one now. I'm not fooled. Same thing with Wayne, you know, or Herbie. No matter what they play, I always hear Miles. Tony Williams, Ron Carter. Even when they do their own albums, I always hear Miles' fingerprints in their music and in our brains. He left some very powerful fingerprints, which is uniqueness and individuality. You know, those are his fingerprints. He taught us, all of us. You know, I thought I was just a blues player. But he told me, you can do more than fucking Black Magic Woman, man. I said, okay, Miles, you know, so. No, I was not surprised because I knew he had that kind of heart. I think only ignorant people are like cows that regurgitate and eat the same thing. I always knew that Miles was a person who had a big heart, and he wanted, his finger wanted to be in what's happening now in the pulse. You know, we love him for that because he was always pushing forward. You know, I saw the influence of Santana on Miles. You know, after he saw Santana, next thing you see, he had congas, and you know, so he touched us, but we also touch him. I mean, I can say that, you know, because I can say it. It's true, you know. But he taught us, all of us, how to do what we want to, not what accountants or lawyers or CBS or Sony or Warner Brothers. Do what your soul tells you to do. Damn the rules is the feeling that counts, you know, kind of thing. That's a supreme lesson to teach anybody, you know. Execute your heart's convictions, you know. I remember he was very nervous when I asked Bill Graham, Amnesty International will not be complete unless Miles Davis is there. Bill Graham said, okay, I'll call him. So then Bill Graham called me like around 3 o'clock in the morning, San Francisco time. And he says, I know it's late and I'm sorry to wake you up, but he said yes. Who said yes? He says, Miles Davis. He says he's going to play at the Amnesty International. And see, Bill Graham is the first person who told me if there was only one record that I could have and I was stuck in an island, it would be Sketches of Spain. Yeah. So that's how much he adored Miles, even though Miles always like picked on him. The first thing Miles would say to Bill Graham is, hi, Jew boy. How you doing, Jew boy? And stuff like that. You know? So I knew they had a special relationship by the way they talked to each other. He was more tender with me, so I guess he left me off the hook. But when we played, Miles was really cranky when I went backstage. Bill says, Miles is here and he's going to play, you know. I didn't bring my band that day. I jammed with Neville Brothers and Ruin Blades and Miles and all in one day. And I told Miles, listen, I don't have to jam, you know. I just want you to play here. You know. He goes, yeah, right. I said, no, I'm serious, man. I don't care what Bill says. To me, I'm just happy that you're here and that your music is going to be presented, you know, like that. Okay, you know. And then he grabbed my pants and he goes, get out of my shit, man. Don't be wearing my shit, you know, like, because I have some really nice pants, you know. It's like, I said, okay, Miles, you know. After we played, he was very kind. After we played, it was a different person. He said, hey, Carlos. I said, yeah. Come here. How was it for you? Could you hear up there? He says, yeah, I could hear pretty good, man. Plus, I can move around, you know. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Some of the guys sitting down, I feel sorry for them because they you know, the monitors were not right. But I move around, so I make my own sound. Stuff like that. Because he knew that America is not as refined as Europe, and America is McDonald's and Madonna, you know, and unfortunately the mentality in America is, which is not really justifiable because Nat King Cole and Natalie Cole had a hit #1 in America everywhere. So America is ready for a 5-star restaurant. You know, it's just that unfortunately they keep making cheap food for lazy people. McDonald's. So Miles knew that, and in Europe, people were more refined, and they would understand everything about him, how he dressed, how he talks, how he thinks, how he feels in his music. He always thought, I'm pretty sure that he always thought about his music last. You know, because I felt that he knew that that was natural to him. So people say, man, you play beautiful. So what? How do I look? You know? And I understand that now. Before I didn't understand it. No. Miles Davis was like Martin Luther King. He was for all people. An angel is one that says for the highest good of all people. I never saw Miles Davis on black magazines. I saw an interview like this in Baltimore. I have this video with this black person asked Miles Davis. First question he asked Miles Davis, Mr. Davis, did you ever meet Charlie Parker? And Miles just lost it. He said, if I was blonde and my eyes were blue, you fucking know what kind of deodorant I wear. But since I'm black just like you don't know a goddamn thing about me. So no, Miles was not for black people. He was for all people. You know, in fact, you never saw Miles in Ebony magazine in front. You saw him in the back when he died. I'll never forget those magazines for that. You know. So no, he wasn't for black people. You know, there's a lot. He said there's a lot of black people I can't stand. You know. Miles was like water. He had no color. You know, if you play some of that blackness, it's just to put certain white people in their place. But I know from his music and from the way he acted around me that he wasn't black or white. He was transparent like a diamond. You know, like water. That's why I love him. You know, that's why if you know, he never threw blackness on my face. Some people did, but he never threw blackness on my face. Never. You know, neither is Wayne or Herbie or Tony. You know, they're persons first, a unique person. I think people understood that Miles was shy, and that we all understood that Miles, like Leonard Bernstein, the first priority is to make the band one band. I mean, if they're like this, it's like that. You know, Miles knew how to play one note that has Earth time, galactic time, celestial time. One note. You know, so if people misunderstand Miles, it's because they rationalize Miles with their mind, not with their heart. If you see Miles from your heart, he's right on. The most important priority is to arouse your band, not the people. You know, once you arouse the band and you get the bass player with the drummer to be one heart, not 10 different heartbeats, but one heartbeat, no flams. No, just one. Not, What do you tell it? There's a video where he tells his nephew Vince, he says, play it on the one, my one. You know, so I understand why Miles did that, you know, because I'm trying to do the same thing myself. I'm trying to make 6 people or 8 people be one beat, one heartbeat. So no, there's no misconception. People are misunderstanding is because they're not thinking right. It's funny, you know, my father-in-law, who played with Charlie Mingus and Art Tatum and Billie Holiday and Leo Wright, people like that, he said that his favorite period was like Miles with Red Garland and Philly Joe Jones and Coltrane. My favorite is all of it, from beginning to an end. I'm very, very fortunate that I can see Miles with Prince, I can see Miles with everybody, and adore it. I mean, literally adore all of it. You know, I don't, some people just get hung up, oh, you know, Miles this and Miles, you know. I feel sorry for them, they miss out. Even musicians who play with him, they say this, oh, you know, Miles ain't doing shit now, he's just playing this rock and roll music. I don't see you playing it. You know, you couldn't play it if you wanted to, because it's not easy to articulate what he, time after time, or human nature. I mean, he always played my favorite things anyway, and My Fanny Valentine, or what's that song from the movie Snow White and the Seventh Dwarf, you know, Someday My Prince Will Come. No, I'm very grateful that I can really say I loved all of it. You know, I'm not hung up. Yes. I thought some of it could have been left out. But he said, you know, I never read it. He said, I haven't read it yet, you know. And it's very, very typical of Miles. You know, I don't think he was into Miles. He was into the world anyway, you know. He was into the spirit in the world. I don't see Miles looking at himself in the mirror other than just, you know what I mean. It was pretty accurate in a lot of ways, but I'm grateful that he was very kind to me in his autobiography. I missed him terribly. I sent him letters, and I found out that he read them. And somebody said that he said, oh, David Rubenson and Herbie Hancock said, Miles received your letter, because I sent him a letter from Osaka, Japan. And I said, Miles said, Carlos loves me. They said, yeah, that's right. We all love you, Miles. You know, in fact, the first time that he came back, he came to see me and my band at the Savoy in New York. And they left me alone with him before I went on stage. And I always meditate, and I had this medal, which was really funny because he kept looking at it. And I said, you want it? He said, only if you put it on me. So I took it off and put it around him, you know, looking at his eyes. And at that time, he was still very kind of negative about life, you know, kind of. And so I always wait for him to finish talking, you know, and then I said, Miles, there's a lot of people like myself in the Bay Area, San Francisco, Oakland, you know, we just love you. And we don't care if you don't want to play anymore. We just want you to be happy and healthy. So he said something like, I can never be happy. And I said, why? I said, you're not one of those people that you're not happy unless you're miserable, are you? And when I said it, I got really afraid because I said, man, I'm talking to Miles, you know. 2 months later, I played with Max Roach. And Max Roach said to me, he grabbed my hand and he says, I want to thank you because Miles came to see me the afternoon before he saw you. And then I saw him the next morning. And he said, I don't know what you told him, but it's working. And so then I had to play my Betamax back. What did I say to Miles? I just said, you're not one of those people that you're not happy unless you're miserable, are you? You have a choice. And that was my only contribution to Miles' psyche, you know, which is something my mother will say to me or your mother will say to you. You know, it wasn't about an ego or anything. It was just about, you know, I love for you to be happy and healthy. That's my best intentions at heart. You know, you're already giving us enough music. And I treasure that story, you know, because it's the only impact that this ant had on the mountain, you know. And it was, since then he called me a lot more. He would call me a lot, and he called me from the road, he called me from his house. What you doing? Oh, I'm just learning. He says, you will always be learning because you got that kind of mind anyway. Thanks, Miles. Fashion. Well, the best thing you can say is that when at the peak of Muhammad Ali in Madison Square Garden, everybody stopped when Miles came in. They ignored Muhammad Ali and they ignored Joe Frazier. Miles came in and the way he was dressed up, people just started screaming. What else can you say, you know? Drugs, I know he took mescaline and some LSD because when I first got into his music, it was still very much Miles in the Sky and Miles Smiles in that era. But I grew up in San Francisco where Ravi Shankar And Charles Lloyd and John Handy experimented with LSD. And then all of a sudden you could see Jimi Hendrix and Sly Stone and everybody changing. And so then Miles changed. Snakeskin shoes, boots, bandanas, and the music started changing like Bitches Brew because he took LSD. Not only that, Tony Williams was there no more and wasn't Ron Carter or Herbie or Wayne. He went after Jack DeJohnette, who was playing acid music, and Keith Jarrett. You know, so I know when Miles took it because I can hear it in the music, you know. The best thing you can say about drugs is that people must know the difference between self-expansion and self-deception. Also, medicine grows from the ground. Drugs, man makes it in a laboratory, so there's a big difference. I know Miles was crazy about Bob Marley, and you know, having the kind of mind that he had, I know he didn't like to smoke pot too much, but he did smoke once in a while. You could tell in his music. You know, I could just tell you from what album to what album, there's the corner. You turn the corner in there. Why? Because he was hanging around Jimmy's girls. Devin, Colette, Monica, and they all hung around Betty Davis. Okay? So that's where it is. I mean, sooner or later they say, well, you know, because Miles was fascinated with Jimi Hendrix, and he wanted to know, how can this motherfucker play like this? Even though it's just the blues. Well, consciousness expansion. You know, LSD, mescaline will make you see yourself different in the mirror. And I can hear it in his music. And I'm happy he did. Because his music became cinemascope. Instead of like this, it became like that. You know. I mean, I don't recommend it for a lot of people who are not happy. Don't take it. But if you're happy with yourself, you're going to have a good time. You know.